Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. A little backstory. I broke up with my boyfriend Jake around 8 months ago for several reasons. One of the main issues was that he would act like an entitled jerk whenever he had the chance. You might wonder why I dated him in the first place. Well, we were good friends, shared a lot of common interests like art and gaming, and he was the first person to ask me out, so I said yes. We dated for a while, but after realizing his true colors were pretty insufferable, I left him. Now, onto the story. Jake didn't handle our breakup well. At all. He would leave nasty notes in my locker, bag, or even mailbox since he knew where I lived. But oh, that was just the beginning. He would approach me at school and loudly proclaim how much of a, and I quote, blind and stupid idiot I was for breaking the heart of someone as nice and good looking as himself. I wish I was kidding. Needless to say, me and my friends got sick of it pretty quickly, especially since he would interrupt us whenever we were talking so we could all listen to his high and mighty speeches. He would also ask everyone, out loud, at lunch, if they would want to see my nudes, which he didn't have since I never sent him any. This went on for a while. One time when I was about to head home, I saw Jake's dad waiting by his fancy orange sports car with black accents. It had only 2 doors and what looked like leather or some premium material on the seats, waiting to pick him up. So I tried talking to him about what had been happening, hoping he would help me out. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Instead, he ignored everything I said and started ranting about how sad I made his son and that I'm the reason he had depression. I was fuming but said nothing. Here comes the petty revenge part of this story. For reference, Jake, my complete jerk of an ex, Jake's dad, also interpreted as entitled dad, Jake's mom, also interpreted as entitled mom, Ryan, my best friend Emily, best friend's sister, me. After months of putting up with his crap, since going to the school faculty wouldn't solve anything, I did try, trust me, but they said they couldn't do anything about it. Ryan came up to me one day saying that he did something pretty stupid, but that would help my situation. Apparently, Jake had hit on his sister, Emily, saying that he had always loved her and how he wants her as his girlfriend. Emily turned him down and Jake went full-on nice guy on her. Ryan, being the stereotypical overprotective older brother that he is, came up with a plan. The day after this had happened, we had a gym class. Now, since Jake is a super trashy person and leaves his stuff everywhere, even in the guys' locker room, it was pretty easy for Ryan to find Jake's jacket, which was thrown onto the floor. Mind you, that jacket was probably worth more than my whole closet. So, Ryan had taken a small pouch filled with something that had a terrible smell. Ryan has a cat, so I assumed it was some rotting cat food or something like that, but he never told me what it actually was. He placed that into the pocket of Jake's jacket along with a note saying, "Stay away from my sister and me. Good luck with the smell." Which did explain the fact that both Ryan and Jake smelled like death for a week, but Ryan said it was worth it. However, it only kept Jake off mine and Emily's backs for a couple of weeks. After the smell of death was gone, he continued his routine. But worse, mostly for Emily. He would keep up the normal bullying for me, but he would now try to grope her and send her a bunch of disgusting messages. Now onto the actual revenge part of this story. Me, Emily, and Ryan came up with a revenge plan. Ryan noticed that Jake would say lots of horrible things about me and Emily, even when he was in the boys' locker room, so he recorded it. Not only that, but he also recorded when Jake had his tirades about our breakup. Emily managed to film him trying to grope her with the help of one of her friends, and also screenshotted the messages he sent her. And I talked to his parents, or more like getting yelled at and cussed out by them when they told me, and I quote, he was justified to do those things, which I also recorded. Now with all the proof we had, we went to the principal and managed to get a meeting, having the principal, me, Emily, Ryan, and Jake. The principal presented the issue, and Jake denied everything, but when it was our turn to talk, oh boy, when it was our turn to talk. Ryan and Emily showed the recordings they had of him, but as we were doing that, the door burst open, and Jake's mom and dad came in. Jake's mom was shouting about how the principal didn't have the right to hold her son for this, and that they had to go somewhere or something like that. I couldn't care less, really. But when they went on a rant about how they did so much for this school and how they are such nice people and all the proof we had was somehow fake, I showed the recordings of them cussing me out and saying how their son was justified. Now, I wish I could have stayed around to see the faces of the parents when the principal called them out on their crap, but he told me, Emily, and Ryan to get out. However, as we were laughing to ourselves in the hall, we heard some stuff along the lines of, "You were lying to me about these events, and Jake will be suspended until I figure out everything else you've been lying about." Later, though, I found out that Jake's parents had actually donated a significant amount to the school, which was pretty much saying, let my son pass his classes even though he has bad grades, but was officially deemed a donation. Since the principal didn't want to take any more of this, he decided to suspend Jake from coming to school for the rest of the year and have him stay back a year. Now, since my school is separated into 2 campuses, my class will be moving to that other campus next year while he will be staying at this one. But knowing his parents, they would probably have him move schools. However, I won't have to deal with him anymore, or at least for a long time. This happened a few months ago, and ever since then, I haven't heard anything from Jake. Emily got a boyfriend, which Ryan did an FBI-style check on, typical overprotective brother. And Ryan also confessed to me, which was nice, but since I just got out of that mess, I decided to take things slow and not put a label on it yet. So, things ended up pretty great. But I learned that you never really know someone's true colors unless you are really close friends, date, and then break up, I guess. "Yo, what's up, Emily?" Ryan asked as he approached her in the hallway. Emily turned to face him. "Hey, Ryan. Not much. Just heading to class." Cool. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something." Ryan's expression grew serious. "What is it?" Emily asked, sensing his shift in demeanor. Ryan leaned in closer. "It's about that jerk, Jake. He's been giving you a hard time, hasn't he?" Emily sighed heavily. "You have no idea. The things he's been saying and doing are just unacceptable." "Yeah, that's what I figured," Ryan said, shaking his head. "Don't worry. I've got a plan to put that entitled prick in his place." Emily's eyes widened. "Really? What do you have in mind?" Ryan smirked mischievously. "Let's just say it involves a little payback for all the crap he's been pulling. The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my house for over 20 years, and for the most part, it's been smooth sailing with my neighbors. That changed when a new homeowners association board was elected last year. Right away, they started making all sorts of new rules and regulations that no one asked for. I tried to ignore them at first, but it soon became impossible. The first issue was when they sent out notices that all houses had to be painted certain approved colors. They gave us a short list of muted earth tones that they claimed would improve neighborhood aesthetics. My house has been a cheerful pale blue for the past 15 years, and I had no intention of changing it to bland beige to satisfy their ridiculous demands. I figured I could just disregard the letter since our homes are all on sizable lots. Who cares what color my house is painted way back from the street? But a few weeks later, I got an angry knock on my door. There stood Kyle, the Homeowners Association president, with a citation threatening me with a fine if I didn't repaint my house. "This blue is unacceptable," Kyle huffed with authority. "It's a vulgar color and ruins the ambiance we're trying to cultivate." I tried to reason with him that my house was barely visible from the road, but he wouldn't budge. His mind was made up that my little act of rebellion was destroying the entire neighborhood's vibe. I finally had to shut the door in his face just to get him off my porch. A few days later, another notice showed up saying I had 30 days to paint my house or the fines would start accruing. $100 a day for non-compliance. I'd had enough and called my lawyer to ask what rights I had to keep my house looking how I wanted. She assured me that since I wasn't bound by any homeowners association agreement, they couldn't actually force me to make changes to my property. Buoyed by that knowledge, I ignored the notices and went about my business. I almost wished Kyle would show up again so I could smile smugly in his face about my lawyer's advice, but I didn't see him around. Until one Saturday morning when I was out doing yard work. I heard tires crunching on gravel and looked up to see a police cruiser pulling into my driveway. Before I could react, 2 uniformed officers got out and approached me. One had a sheaf of papers that he handed over, while explaining they were there to issue a formal citation for my building code violations per the Homeowners Association's complaints. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I glanced through the pages, which outlined in meticulous detail everything from my non-compliant house color to the lawn furniture on my patio that apparently also violated some new Homeowners Association guidelines. The officer droned on about possible fines and court dates if I refused to remedy the infractions. But I barely listened. I was so furious about these unelected busybodies weaponizing the cops to harass me over such trivial homeowners association rules. As calmly as I could, I informed the officers that I did not actually belong to the homeowners association, nor had I agreed to abide by their covenants. Therefore, they had no authority to enforce arbitrary rules on my private property. I pointed out that the citations they were issuing had no legal grounds whatsoever. The cops hesitated, seemingly caught off guard that I was refusing to be intimidated. After some uncertain hemming and hawing, one officer radioed back to dispatch while his partner questioned me about the Homeowners Association's claims. I simply reiterated that I was not bound by their rules in any way. After a few minutes of terse back and forth, the officers finally conceded that they did not have cause to legally compel me to change anything on my property. With some grumbling about having their time wasted, they got back in the cruiser and vacated my driveway, citation papers left strewn on the ground. I nearly shook with anger as I watched them drive away. How dare Kyle sick the cops on me in an effort to get his way? I immediately called my lawyer and told her what happened. She reassured me that the Homeowners Association had overstepped their bounds and advised me to document everything in case they tried something again. Armed with that advice, I installed security cameras and prepared myself for an escalation in hostilities. Sure enough, a few days later, a letter arrived threatening me with a lawsuit if I didn't comply with the Homeowners Association's list of demands. But I knew better than to give in to their bullying. Over the next few weeks, notices kept coming and the fines they claimed I owed grew higher and higher. But I stood my ground, secure in the knowledge I had every right to enjoy my property as I saw fit. My refusal to bow to their pressure clearly frustrated Kyle and his band of busybodies. They must have realized that a lawsuit against me would be fruitless, but they weren't ready to admit defeat. Instead, they doubled down on snide comments and gossip meant to harass me into compliance. Every time I was in my front yard, clusters of Homeowners Association minions would walk by, whispering loudly and shaking their heads about how I was ruining everything. Passive-aggressive texts circulated about my antisocial behavior. They were fully embracing their roles as mean girls of the neighborhood. But I didn't stoop to their level. I waved pleasantly and went about my business. The months dragged on and still I didn't budge. My house remained its cheery blue hue, and not even a lawn ornament was shifted to appease them. Until finally, a white flag was raised when I got a letter from the Homeowners Association president advising that pursuance of complaints against my property were being dropped. They mumbled some nonsense about choosing their battles, but I knew the truth. They recognized I couldn't be cajoled into obeying their ridiculous demands. It was a hard fight, but I emerged victorious against the tyranny of the Homeowners Association, Karens, and Kyles. I'll stay vigilant in case they get another bee in their bonnet about my window planters or garden gnomes, but I think they realized they couldn't bully me into giving up my rights as a property owner. The color of my house may be blue, but my spirit burned a fiery red that they couldn't extinguish. The next one is a petty revenge story. I was flying in the window seat because I like looking out the window. The woman sitting next to me reached in front of me multiple times to close the window shade. She never asked me, she just reached directly in front of me to close the shade. I would immediately reopen it, and a few minutes later she would reach in front of me again to close it. It was a noon domestic short-haul flight, so no reason to need darkness in the middle of the day, and absolutely no excuse for violating my personal space multiple times without asking me or acknowledging me or treating me like a human in any way. So I pulled out my book and turned on the reading light, despite there being ample natural light from the open window for me to read. I then positioned my hands in such a way that my watch would reflect the reading light directly into her eyes. I read like that for an hour, jiggling my hand the entire time, so it would shine the light back and forth across her eyes and be super distracting and annoying. Once we landed and she took her headphones off, I turned to her and said, "Next time you fly, book a window seat if you want to control the window, or at least treat me like a human and ask me before you violate my personal space. What you did is unbelievably rude." She looked so offended, and naturally she walked 2 miles per hour. Being a city walker, I easily got in front of her. Then once we were on the moving walkway, I stopped immediately in front of her. Did the same on the escalator to the curb before flipping her off the entire way to my ride. The next one is a malicious compliance story. A Karen neighbor of mine complained that my roommate and I park in the same parking spot, which is right next to the walkway up to the apartment building. Both of us ride motorcycle and both motorcycles belong to me, but my roommate rides one to get to work. She accused me of using my second bike to get a de facto reserved a parking spot when nobody in the complex has one, and said that what I'm doing is not fair and it's cheating. I said, "Okay, I'll stop parking both my bikes in one spot." She seemed satisfied with that and left. An hour later, I had all 7 of my motorcycles, 5 of them from inside the garage I rent, but it's halfway across the apartment complex, sitting in front of the apartment building, taking up every prime parking space in front of the walkway to my hall in the building. She went straight to the management to complain. The management came out and knocked on my door. "We can't have you using up every parking space." "Let me guess," Karen complained. "Yes." "Yeah, she told me I'm not allowed to have 2 bikes in one parking space to reserve a space. I'm not doing it to reserve a space. Both my roommate and I ride both of the bikes we park in that one space. All the bikes belong to me, but I gave the keys to one of them to my roommate to ride for commuting to work. The other one is my bike for going wherever I need. We park both in one spot to be nice and conserve parking spaces so other people have somewhere to park." I was just showing Karen what would happen if I'm only allowed one bike per parking space. The other 5 bikes are generally in another parking space in my garage where I keep the bikes that don't ride frequently. The apartment manager said, "I understand, you made your point and I'll talk to her. Please put the other 5 bikes back in the garage." "No problem," I said. "It's been a few weeks, haven't heard from Karen." The next one is an entitled people story. I would like to know if what I did was wrong, so it's a long story, but I'll start it at the best place I can think of, the start. I am currently homeless. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. It's completely because of a medical issue. This is relevant because it means I spend almost all my time outdoors in the parks and forests. Well, yesterday I was out for one of my usual hikes through the woods while going through a parking lot that has access to the trails. I came upon a raccoon in the parking lot at high noon. I know it's not an unusual thing to see a wild animal in and around the forests and parks, but this time was different. The animal was rabid. It was clearly very sick. It had all the signs of rabies. It was foaming at the mouth, wandering around the lot, dazed and confused. Worst of all, it was approaching people. It tried to come out to me, walking on its hind legs, front arms stretched out like it was coming in for a hug. I called animal control and waited for 30 minutes. In that time, I was warning people to stay back. Every so often, the raccoon would collapse and have a seizure, slowly recover, and start wandering again. It was clear the animal was very sick and not long for this world. Animal control called me back to inform me that they would be there shortly for the animal and said I could leave. I did. I left and went to get some bologna for lunch and dinner. Well, I had to go back that way to return to camp. 2 hours had passed since I left. When I got back, there was this older woman standing at the side of the parking lot. Guess what? Animal control never showed up for the thing. I called again, and I was told that they aren't coming because there's no street address to go to. That animal was suffering. I spoke with the woman who was also trying to get animal control, and honestly, we decided that the best thing to do is to show it mercy and put it out of its misery. So I went into the woods and found a very big, heavy log, more of a club, to do just that. Well, when I got back to the animal to do the deed, another woman came running up with her cell phone in hand, screaming at me, saying, "What are you doing? You can't do that." She was recording me. We tried to explain that animal control won't come, that the animal is clearly rabid, you can tell it's in pain. She yelled at me, saying it's not my job, that what I was going to do is cruel and illegal, that she's going to call the cops. At this time, the raccoon had collapsed, its entire body shaking. It was having another seizure. I really didn't want to do it, honestly. What I had to do hurt my heart. But I did it with one whack, ended its suffering. The woman who was helping me thanked me for being the one to do it. The other one who was yelling followed me, screaming, calling me a dirty bum, disgusting, a monster, screaming I am going to jail, and some really nasty remarks about how they are going to have fun with me in prison. Honestly, I feel horrible for doing it, but I think I made the right choice. The next one is an entitled parent story. I have a beautiful 2.5 MO baby. My dad started fighting with me because I refused to leave her alone with him until he shows me he can take care of her, change diaper, feed from bottle, warm up breast milk, etc. We had a huge fight, there was yelling, and when I told him the next day that I can't do this anymore because it's preventing me from caring for my baby properly, he complained that I am putting her over my relationships with him. Duh. So I told him she is more important, and I will talk to him when she doesn't need me 24/7 and blocked him. My mom came over a few times the next week and eventually asked if she can come over with my dad so he can see her. I said yes. He came over, threw a fit that she's asleep, and left. The next day, I was at my parents' house with her while my dad was at work. I was downstairs in the living room with her when he came back home early. My mom offered him to wash his hands and hold her, something we also fought over, and he just stopped angrily upstairs, and when Mom went to talk to him, he apparently wanted her to bring my baby to him without me. I obviously refused because she's so small and I don't trust him even with Mom's supervision, and he is now claiming I am keeping her away from him. To be honest, maybe I should. The next one is an entitled people story.
I, 27F, am 5 months pregnant. I have pre-existing health issues that I manage by having a diet with no meat of any sort. This has caused me and mother-in-law to have conflicts, especially when I refuse to eat the food she makes. I used to either come and not eat anything or just stay at home. Since I'm pregnant, I could not attend Thanksgiving and not bring food with me out of respect for MIL. I cooked a small meal and brought it with me. Mother-in-law made a fuss about it, but justified it as I was making a mistake robbing her grandbaby of getting all meat benefits. I explained that I take supplements as replacement, but she shrugged and was upset. We waited till dinner table was set. Mother-in-law didn't let me help or go into the kitchen at all. She took my dish and said she'd reheat it for me and put it on the table. Yet, when I sat down, I was stunned to have discovered that she had not put my dish there. When asked publicly, she denied receiving any dish from me and started asking if I accidentally left it at home or the car. There was a huge blow-up. Mother-in-law tried to convince me to sit back down and just eat what she put on the table. I refused, but my husband insisted and told me to let it go this time. I decided to leave. I grabbed my stuff and walked out. I found out that she threw out the dish I brought and tried to get me to just eat what she put on her table. She said that she was looking out for grandbaby's health, and my husband said it wasn't worth leaving the celebration and causing a scene. We had a big argument, and his mom thinks I'm being dramatic and hard to deal with. Was I the a-hole for walking out? Info: the dish I brought was supposed to keep me full and provide me with all the benefits, so it wasn't like any of her appetizers or side dishes. I also put work into making it, and it cost me money. She keeps insisting it's about her grandbaby and her concern for their health. Comments said, not the a-hole. I've been in your shoes. Tell your husband to defend you, or you're out. Things will only get worse. She's gonna force you to raise that baby her way, and your husband is gonna let her. The gaslighting from her is especially scary. Literally tell your husband straight out that he either be 100% on your side from now on for everything, or you're leaving him. Do not put up with that. It will ruin your life, your marriage, and your kid. Another comment said, not the a-hole. That's a truly psycho and disrespectful thing for her to do. Your boyfriend is in the wrong for not having your back on this issue. You know your body and what it can handle at this time. It's not for anyone to decide but you. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for uninviting my sister-in-law and mother-in-law from everything, and saying that if my husband continues to pressure me, he'll also be uninvited? Not the a-hole. I am 7 months pregnant with my first child. The baby is also the first grandchild/nephew of my husband's family, which everyone is excited about. I lost my mother and father to the pandemic, being an only child, so there's not much in my family. Since the death of my parents, 1 year ago, my husband's family has welcomed me with open arms as part of them, and I have become very close to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I always wanted to have a gender reveal, and I trusted my sister-in-law to organize everything about this. With 3 days to go before the party, I started to receive messages from all my husband's relatives and even close friends congratulating me on my baby being a boy. I went to ask what happened. My sister-in-law confessed that she let it slip to my mother-in-law, and she told everyone the sex of the baby after knowing, because she couldn't hold it and took proportions beyond what they imagined. Nobody calls me to tell this. The party was cancelled and I was heartbroken, as well as extremely hurt by the two of them. Usually they accompanied me to the ultrasound shopping for the baby's room, and my mother-in-law would stay at the time of delivery. But after this breach of trust, I stopped inviting them and asked them to respect my boundaries when they pressured me to go. Honestly, I didn't even send them the baby shower invite because I really avoided contact with them as much as possible. Because everyone knew before me that it was a boy. My husband started complaining that I was pushing them away because of a mistake that could happen, and that I was being harsh. Yesterday he brought up this, and when I said that I still didn't feel comfortable with them, he said, soon you'll tell me that my mother won't be able to go to the birth. I think my face showed my response, and he started saying that I was being too hard on her because she was just excited and blah blah. I had my limit and said, if you keep pushing me, it won't just be your mother who won't be on my labor. So either stop or you won't come in. He started to say that I was crossing lines and that he had a right to have this moment. I was taking this with them too far. He slept on the couch and doesn't talk to me more than necessary. Am I the a-hole? Comments said, not the a-hole. My husband started complaining that I was pushing them away because of a mistake that could happen and that I was being harsh. This wasn't a mistake, this was a choice. Your sister-in-law made a choice and told mother-in-law. Mother-in-law then made a choice to tell everyone else in the family. Your husband is making the choice to pressure you into things, which is leaving you to make some choices of your own now. You are allowed to make your own choices. Nobody, not even the husband, has a right to be in the delivery room. May seem harsh, but it's true. The person going through the procedure has the choice of who gets to be in there. Birthing a child is not an all-access pass for everybody else who wants to be in there. It's not a spectacular sport, it's a medical procedure to get a little human out of another human. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law slipping could have been an honest mistake. Your mother-in-law spreading it around was a concise choice. You may be going a little too far with your sister-in-law, again, possible accident, but your mother-in-law made her choice and is now dealing with the consequences. The last story is titled, Ex-Wife Tries to Frame Me for Theft. Background, at this point in the saga, having lost the custody battle, V is moving to NH to be with her then primary lover, now husband number 5. A detail that amuses me to this day is that he shares the same first name as the FB lover from CA as mentioned in my first post. I always refer to them as Paul number 1 and Paul number 2 when talking about them. Yes, I'm easily amused. The incident. About a month after the custody hearing at which I got full physical custody of Rebecca, V and I had an email exchange in which we agreed that I would go to her apartment and take Rebecca's captain's bed and some of Rebecca's belongings the day before movers arrived to pack up Voldemort's stuff. She was moving 75 miles away to central NH, having burned pretty much every bridge in the area. As Sam drives a truck, he graciously agreed to come along to both help and to be a witness. So we get there around 7:20 p.m. and knock at the door. After a brief wait, V opens the door, iPhone glued to her ear. She sullenly mumbles something about her stuff is upstairs and then heads off to her second-floor bedroom, weaving and mumbling something that made me stop and think. I didn't quite get it, but I recall thinking, I really cannot go in here at all without a witness. I stick my head out the door. Sam, come on. You need to come in with me. So, we go in. Holy crap. It's a tip. It's not quite filthy, but it's beyond cluttered. By now, V has disappeared into her room, complete with slamming the door, so it takes me a bit of wandering to find Rebecca's room. It's not just that she's in the middle of packing, but there is crap everywhere. Dust, cobwebs tracked in dirt, unwashed dishes, empty boxes of wine, dry dog food scattered and trampled underfoot. I can see that it's quite a nice place. An open living area with a balcony overlooking it, and lovely woodwork, and exposed beams and insert shelves in the walls. An antique wood stove on a hearth is blazing away. Really, lots of potential. But a tip, nonetheless. So Sam and I start gathering up Rebecca's stuff and take some stuff out to the car. I realize we need an Allen wrench to take apart the bed. So I go out to the car to get one and come back in. In the lull in activity, she had come back into the living area but went right back into her bedroom as we climbed the stairs, phone still glued to her ear. It takes a bit, but we finally get the bed taken apart and have moved most of the stuff in Rebecca's room out to the front lawn. Without conferring, it's clear Sam and I both decided to get the stuff to the front lawn and worry about packing the vehicle after we're completely out of the house. It's at this point that it starts to get weird. Sam is carrying out the second to last load when V pops out of her bedroom door, looks out from the balcony and says, "Why are you taking stuff out of my house?" Sam drops what he's carrying and exits the house. I come out of Rebecca's room, and V clearly didn't realize I was still there, and say, "You agreed via email that we would take Rebecca's bed tonight." She looks startled and says, "Is that Rebecca's stuff?" "Of course it is. You said her stuff was in her room." "Fine." She goes back into her bedroom. I take what I'm carrying and go outside. Sam says, "Dude, that's not right. We need to call the police." "You're absolutely right." I could tell that Sam was expecting me to object, and he does a double take when he realized he wasn't going to have to convince me. "Crownsville Police Department, you're on a recorded line." "Yes, hi, my name is Jack Crow, and I live at 321 Main Street here in Crowsville." While I'm talking to the police on the phone, I'm aware of V coming to the door and opening it, and becoming quite agitated as she realizes I'm talking to the police. By the time I finish the following explanation, she has slammed the door and is tromping around inside the living area, heatedly talking on her phone. I'm at my ex-wife's apartment getting some of my daughter's belongings as we had agreed to via email, and while I'm getting the last of the stuff out of the house, she suddenly asks, "Why are you taking stuff out of my house?" So, in order to protect all parties, I'm asking that a police officer comes by to verify with Miss Crow that she agreed to this and that she is fine with what we have removed from the house. "An officer will be right there, Mr. Crow." As I'm waiting for the officer to arrive, leaning nonchalantly against the front of Sam's truck, Sam is standing there next to me, just shaking his head. Right about here, V throws open the front door, muttering something about having not gotten all of Rebecca's stuff, and proceeds to deposit another laundry basket piled high with clothes and other items on the front stoop, and then disappears back inside. I start to whistle, "Pop Goes the Weasel." Most of the stuff we moved is still sitting on the front lawn. We leave it there. After about 5 minutes, the officer arrives. He steps out of the patrol SUV, and I slowly approach him, arm extended to shake his hand. "Good evening, officer. I'm Jack Crow." "Evening, Mr. Crow. Allie Johnson." We shake hands. I give him a brief explanation of the situation, and he comments that I was right to call him and that he'll go speak to V. He's up there for about 2 minutes, and then he comes back down. You guys are good to go. We briefly chat with him, apologizing for having to get him involved, and he replies, no, you did the right thing. If a woman in MA says something bad about you and you've got stuff dangling between your legs, you're gonna be in trouble. I liked him a lot after that. We start loading the rest of the stuff, and he asks, how much more is in the house? Nothing, it's all out here, except that last laundry basket on the stoop that Miss Crow brought out while we were waiting for you. Oh good. I can't sit here all night. If you guys are good to go, I'll take off. Wait, what's that? What's what? I think I saw a phone in that basket. He shines his flashlight on the laundry basket on the front stoop. I walk up to the basket. An iPhone is sitting on the top of it. I pick it up, and it looks like Rebecca's old iPhone 4. It's my daughter's old phone. I'll just take it with us. I carry the basket down to my car and put it in the back seat. Just as I'm walking away, it rings. Incoming call from V's landline. I realize it's V's phone. I pick it up and answer it. Hello? Click. I look at the front. There's a text from Paul number 2 on the lock screen. Is he gone yet? Yup, it's her phone. Wait, officer, I was wrong. It's Miss Crow's phone. Could you return it to her? He takes it from me and returns it to V at the front door and walks back down to us. Okay, you're still good to go. I'm gonna go now. If you could, swing by again in 15 to 20 minutes. If we're still here, you might want to pull in and make sure we're still okay. Sounds good. You two take care. Not 5 minutes after he pulls out, and while we're still loading stuff, V again pops out of the front door, phone glued to her ear. Is the officer still here? No. Get him back. Why? I want him back. Get him. And back inside she goes. I'm briefly tempted to tell her, if you want the cop back, you call for him. But that little voice in my head says, you call. So I redial Crowsville's finest and request that Officer Johnson return to the address. Again, Sam and I assume our waiting positions at the front of the truck. This is why I didn't want Rebecca here tonight. Good call. A few minutes later, Officer Johnson arrives. Hey, Officer Johnson. Long time no see. He grins at me. She just came out the front door just after you left, asking for the police to be called. I'll go see what she wants. He goes up there and V hands him her phone. He talks for a few minutes, hangs up the phone, continues speaking with V for 20 more seconds, and then returns to us. I look at him quizzically. No worries, guys, you're still good to go. But I'm gonna stay here until you're done. I continue to give him the raised eyebrow. She wanted to accuse you of trying to steal her phone, but I pointed out to her that I was the one to notice it in the basket you hadn't touched yet, and that you were the one to ask me to return it to her. Her boyfriend asked if you could be made to wait until Sunday, but I told him no, they've got 3 more things to load and they're out of here. Just finish up, guys. We all want to get home where it's warm. We finished up, and we all shook hands and got out of there.
The next one is an entitled People Story.
My partner lost her new job last month unexpectedly, completely out of the blue, for absolute bullcrap reasons, but that's a whole other story. She's been looking for a new job, but there was no way she would be able to find one in time to avoid a lapse in health insurance, which isn't really an option for us. In order to get her on my insurance, we decided to just go ahead and tie the knot. We've already been in the process of planning our wedding next fall for quite some time. One of the first things we did was pick a venue. At first, we had our hearts set on the local botanical gardens, aka Venue A. We spent a lot of time there, and even had a membership for a year before our finances dissolved into chaos. But when we reached out to them, we discovered that their prices and policies are insane. The venue itself has a large rental fee, which we expected and planned for, but then they nickel and dime you with a bunch of other mandatory charges. You have to use their vendors, everything is per guest, and they have a 125 guest minimum. We don't even know that many people, let alone that many we would want at our wedding. All told, it was going to be upwards of $10,000 for their most basic packages. And on top of all that, they and their vendors couldn't even promise me a meal I could eat. I'm violently allergic to gluten, and so is most of my family. So naturally, that was out of the question, and we picked a different place. Venue B, local arboretum with much, much more reasonable costs/policies, extremely helpful staff, and options for food allergies. We still plan to have our real wedding there next fall, and couldn't be happier with our choice. But when we were deciding where to have our little marriage ceremony this week, with just our closest friends, I had an idea. It was only 6 of us, so I had everyone buy a regular general admission ticket to Venue A, We went in, found a little secluded corner, and held our tiny ceremony there without all the bullcrap charges. We then pranced around the venue, taking lots of cute pictures together to celebrate our marriage, all for the low price of general admission. And because I'm extra petty, whenever we do have the financial leeway to become members again, we're going to instead sign up for membership with Venue B. They're both part of the National Reciprocation Program, so membership at one grants entry at the other. And we've decided that Venue B deserves our money more. Suck it, Venue A. The next story is titled, Don't Want to Pay for the Work? Alright, I'll undo it. I'm naming the company name because I've had many issues with them, and everyone should be warned. So, have to say this first, beware of working for the delivery service Shipt. Today, I picked up an order for delivery. It had gone promo, money added on Shipt. It was for delivery in a town that is 15 minutes from the store of purchase. Alright, not too bad for $16, especially since I live within 10 minutes of the town I was delivering to. I take it. I go to the store, receive the groceries, and I'm on my merry way. I send a text to the customer that I'm on my way and will reach them before time. No response, so I give a quick call. It does a weird thing and ends. Doesn't even go to voicemail. Huh. Whatever, I sent them a text. Get to the house, knock, no answer, leave the bag outside the door, and walk away. Make it to my car. Start said car. Woman pokes her head out the porch door as I'm about to leave. You are very lovely, woman on porch. Thank you for your kindness. Waves me down, looking highly confused. So I, unfortunately, stop the car and get out. Woman asks what this is. Why, your order, ma'am, I say, looking all happy. I didn't order anything, she says. Oh no. Did anyone else in the house? Nope. Oh no. So there's a wrong address on the delivery. I've never dealt with this before, and I have to leave to catch a movie with my friends in 30 minutes. Cue me going door to door at each house on that small street while reaching out to Shipt support and while trying to call the customer again. Does the same weird thing with the phone. Give up on that. Proceed to knock on doors. Nope. Nobody's. Alright. Shipt's suggestion? Just drive back and return it. No, Shipt. I am not a delivery contractor. I am not a volunteer, nor am I a charity. I am hired by you to fulfill deliveries. As far as I'm concerned, I have delivered to the address on file. I am not reaching into my bank account to correct someone else's mistake. For the total extra 30-minute round trip, I'll need $10 on top of the initial pay. Thanks, gas, for being so expensive. No, they say, we'll give you $8.10. No, I say. I have plans in now 10, what should have been 30, mind you, minutes, that I will now miss. $8.10 will not cover the gas and wear and tear for the extra 30 minutes. I will need no less than $10 or I will leave them on the curb of the noted delivery address, 580 Blanking Street in Dickoff. We'll give you $5 and can't do any more than that, they say. Wait, I say. $5 on top of the additional $8.10 to make $13.10 on top of what I'm being paid, or just $5? I want everything in writing, specifically because I knew Shipt was going to do exactly what they did next. Oh, yes, $13.10, but we can't do any more, they say. Fine, I'm returning it to the store now, I say. Go to the store, do the whole return process, get in contact with Shipt as they directed me with the requested information, get a message on my phone from Shipt to the effect of, your order has been canceled and $20.80 issued to your account. What? I contact Shipt, say, I'm confused. Say, it looks as though they were only giving me $5 on top of the original order payment when they said I would be compensated $13.10. I was told, oh, we won't give you any more than $5. But you already said, is there someone else I can speak to? Nope. $5. Take it or leave it. Alright, fine. Don't want to pay me the agreed upon wage? That's a breach of contract, meaning you never actually paid me for this return. So, what did I do? I marched right back into the store, asked the worker who had taken the return what she had done with it, snatched the bag up, strode up to a manager, informed them of what happened, and told them since I wasn't being paid to return the groceries, I would be taking them back to the last place I was contracted and paid to deliver them, 580 Blanking Street in Dickoff. Told him if he wanted to be recompensated for the groceries, he could charge shipped, as they were not willing to pay to have them returned. Messaged shipped from my car, informing them of this, and gave them 30 minutes. Yep, plans definitely ruined. It's now 2 hours later to rescind their rescission and pay me what they actually agreed to and owed me. Had to reach out 2 separate times because the first girl, despite me being very polite, would not go to anyone else, such as management, to ask for an exception to this policy considering they had literally told me they would pay me more. Actually had the gall to ask if I had taken items I had returned, and all I had to say in response was, "Did you pay me to return them?" Second girl was much more helpful, reached out to her team to see if anything could be done. Shipped still wouldn't be swayed, but I thanked her profusely for at least trying. So, in the end, they said they wouldn't do any more than $5. I told them, alright, I reject that offer. Just pay me for the original delivery because $5.80 is where they'll be. You can pay another shipped shopper $15 to come get them. Drove back, it was on my way home, dropped them off, and left. I'm not a charity, I don't work for free, and I certainly don't pay to work. I'm going to be messaging ShopRite Corporate directly, along with New Jersey Labor Board, because this is not the first issue with wages I've had with Shipped. And honestly, ShopRite should seek compensation from them. Have fun paying for the more than $13.10 of groceries that are now rotting on the curb, Shipped. Side note, to anyone who may say you're being entitled, no, I am not. It is not entitled to expect an agreed-upon wage. It is extortion to expect me to work for less than agreed. Imagine you accepted an order from a delivery service, fulfilled that obligation, and suddenly they decided to pay you less than half for that completed order. Or you're working at a job and they suddenly cut your pay without any notice or agreement upon your part. As I explained to them, I never would have returned the groceries for $5 because it wasn't my mistake. Would have returned them no problem if it had been. And I would be paying to return them, plus the missed plans, plus the lost time. So, no. I am no way in the wrong, and I don't care what anyone who thinks otherwise has to say. The next story is titled, Cops Knocked Down My Dorm Door Because Mom Lied to Get Me Back. I attend college in Arizona, Mom and stepdad live in Maine. I've gone VLC with them over the 3 years I've been in school. The summers I've managed to get a job or internship to keep me out here. 4 months ago, Mom sent me an email telling me I was coming to Thanksgiving. She wanted the family together and had a photographer coming to take photos. So, we could fake being a happy family for a few hours. I told her I would not be coming because of my job on campus. She then called the school, who told her that A, I'm over 18, therefore they can't tell her anything. And B, when she threatened to pull me out, the awesome lady at the registers told her, good luck, he's on a full scholarship and pays for everything himself. When she realized she couldn't lie to the school, she had E-Dad call me to beg me to come. This guy stood by since I was 12 and watched my mom beat me, degrade me, lie about me, and did nothing. Duck him. I ignore his calls. She then called my bio dad, who laughed at her and hung up. We have our issues, but he's genuinely a good guy who's dealt with mental health issues his entire life. So, Thanksgiving, I woke up. School was closed that day, so I didn't have to work. Went to the gym, enjoyed a leisurely breakfast at my favorite cafe. I came home and was getting ready to throw laundry in the washer and make myself chicken and noodles in my crock pot when my door was pretty much knocked down. Campus cops and outside cops. Guess whose mom called and said her son told his 13-year-old sister, I don't talk to my siblings because they're easily swayed by mom, that he was going to bomb the school. Yeah. So, after a trip to the campus police building, them searching my room and car and finding nothing, my RA and 2 floor mates defending me, and me showing emails of my mom threatening me I'd be sorry for not coming to Thanksgiving, they apologized. I was allowed to go back to my dorm in the RA, and I managed to put the door back on. Then my grandma calls. Guess who was arrested for making a false police report? If you guessed my mom, you'd be right. The next story is titled, I Changed My Ex's Netflix Profile. I found out my STB ex-husband was having an emotional affair. His words, an affair is an affair in my eyes. I still had all the login information for our shared Netflix account, but under his email. I changed his profile photo to a rooster and the name to Babyback Idiot. And I changed my profile name to his emotional partner's name and made the pic of Lucifer from the TV show. He changed the password, but then he didn't re-sign into our son's tablet, so I had to get the password from him anyway, and he's too dumb and hasn't changed it yet. Update, I was able to mess with his account a little bit on my son's tablet. The Wi-Fi wasn't working well, so I couldn't watch anything, but I deleted a bunch of stuff from his continue watching row and messed with where he left off on other shows. The last story is titled, Scream at an Employee Because They Don't Have the Cupcakes You Want? Enjoy, my derriere dear. Okay, so this is a silly story, but it still makes me chuckle. A few months ago, I was out running errands on the weekend. One of my errands had me pick up some cupcakes from a local bakery for D&D. This local bakery makes fabulous cupcakes with unique frosting flavors. Lavender honey is my personal favorite, so they are pretty popular. Due to their popularity, I had ordered ahead. Unfortunately, the woman behind me didn't. Insert entitled Karen. As soon as she queued up, I felt slightly queasy. It was likely due to her perfume, but alas, something more was off. It did not take long for her to complain about the length of the line. There were maybe 4 people in front of me. Honestly, not that bad, but it's a small shop, so it can take some time to process everyone. Instead of looking at her phone and scrolling through Instagram like a normal human being, Karen decided to whine and moan about how slow the service was. This, of course, made everything feel infinitely slower. Once a few people had processed and she could see the glass cabinets, she decided to complain about the lack of variety. It was at this point that the front staffed employee, who was ringing up someone else, told her that what they had on display was the last of the morning batch. If she wanted specific flavors, Karen would either have to wait for the afternoon batch to be finished or next time order ahead. Karen didn't like that. She huffed about how a bakery, again, small, locally owned, with max 2 bakers, should obviously make more cupcakes than they can sell, because what if she wants a dozen of their seasonal flavor? The employee tried to explain how they made only a certain amount each day and that this is their policy. Again, she could order ahead or come back later. Now, this entire time I had been scrolling on my phone, again like a normal human being, and didn't figure Karen would do anything besides make buzzing noises. I was wrong. We were standing more or less next to one another at the time since it was my turn to pick up my order. Karen's face went into a shade of red I can only describe as overheated pig. She then started berating the employee at how unfair the whole thing was. She just continued to sputter about the atrocity of not having the cupcakes she wanted. Now, it is never okay to scream at someone who is just doing their ducking job. What Karen didn't know was that I had eaten curry the night before. 2 bowls, in fact. I had deliberately been holding my sphincter shut to avoid gassing out anyone. However, I decided to let my butt blow a fellow a-hole a kiss. I turned myself slightly to get ample aim and let it rip. A faint hissing was heard, most likely only by me, as Karen continued yelling. She then suddenly stopped. It's as if the world slowed as her nostrils sniffed the now pungent air. She gagged, ever so slightly, but I heard the disgust. It took everything in me not to erupt with laughter. I pray the employee didn't get caught in the crossfire. They were a few feet away due to the counter, but Karen certainly took the full blast. Luckily, no one else was behind her. I left the shop with my delicious dozen and a little bit lighter.
The next one is an entitled People Story.
I have a neighbor who's a typical Karen. She's a stay-at-home mom and has tried to befriend me countless times before. She sells some kind of multi-level marketing product. I recognize that pitch she used on me. She knows my boyfriend and I are child-free and assumes that we have so much free time, and she keeps dropping hints that she needs a sitter for her 3 kids. I was not interested in befriending her. She gives off the vibe that I need a glass of wine to get me through the day, and her kids are the most spoiled brats I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. I have seen her kid break stuff and throw the worst tantrums at community gatherings and the neighborhood parties pre-pandemic. Surprisingly, she's still liked by a lot of neighbors who are also stay-at-home moms who think they're oppressed. I have also heard from one other neighbor that she's made some racist remarks towards me and said my boyfriend would do better with his own kind of people. For context, I am Indian and my boyfriend is white. So last week, my BF's brother and his wife asked if their kids could come over to our house and spend about a week here. They are both working from home and they said their workload is piling up. We didn't mind. They would just have online classes from our house. We also have a pool in our backyard that they like spending time in. My neighbor noticed this and was livid that I would spend time with my own niece and nephew, but not her precious kids. She has since told everyone that my niece and nephew are over at my house and that I absolutely hate her kids. I heard from one neighbor who told me about her racist remarks that I have offered to watch her kids, but never showed up, none of which is true. I barely know her and told her before that I'm not great with kids in general. So she thinks I'm lying because I can have my niece and nephew over at my house. She has gotten most of the neighborhood on her side, most of which are stay-at-home moms who think they deserve the world because they had kids. They sent me messages asking why I lied about not being good with kids and why I wouldn't offer to watch her kids when I clearly have free time because I'm CF, and every mama deserves a break. So am I the a-hole for lying? Because I like spending time with my niece and not her kids? Comment said, not the a-hole. If she can't manage to bring up kids that you would want to spend time with instead of avoiding like the plague, why would she expect you to want to babysit? Not only that, but if you hear any more comments about it, tell the people you hear it from that you've heard she's been racist towards you, and surely she doesn't want one of your kind to take care of them. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Like this mother, I had kids. Like this mother, I'm a stay-at-home mom who could do with a break. Unlike this mother, I recognize that nobody is obliged to put themselves out because I had kids. Not even the childless couple down the street. Of course, you want to spend time with your niece and nephews. They're family. And more to your point, it's your choice to spend time with them. This handful of wet sand needs to pull her head in. You being childless is no reason to expect you to watch her feral spawn. The next story is titled, Would I Be the Asshole If I Don't Share My Inheritance with My Half-Siblings? My father left my mom when I was 10 years old. He was having a baby with his girlfriend, now wife. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't finish college. She had gotten pregnant with my older brother. My father was an ass and made the divorce as crappy as possible for my mom. We ended up moving in with my paternal grandparents. He was their only child, and they were disappointed in him. They helped my mom go back to school. Once she finished school, she wanted to pay them back, but they wouldn't let her. They also basically disowned my father. He was invited over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that was about it. They did love their other grandchildren, though. They always provided gifts and contributed to their education. My grandmother passed away a few years ago from breast cancer. And my grandfather passed away last year from complications related to COVID. And he left everything to my brother and me. It wasn't a huge estate, and it's not life-changing money. Both my brother and I are well established in our careers. They left my father $500. The lawyer explained that it was a way of avoiding him being able to challenge the will. They also left each of my half-siblings $10,000. My brother and I each got over $100,000. My grandfather said that since my brother and I had grown up without a father by his choice, but his other children had then, he felt this was fair. He also left my mom his house and some money. She had been taking care of them for a long time, and they never stopped thinking of her as a daughter. My father approached my brother and I recently saying that his other kids are struggling with their finances and that we should split everything with them since we really don't need the money. He also tried to get my mom to renounce her inheritance. She laughed in his face and asked for all the child support he owed. I get that's not my half-siblings' fault, but they had a dad to take care of them growing up and we didn't. So neither my brother nor I agreed to share. Now my father, his wife, and all my half-siblings are calling us a-holes for being so greedy and not helping them through the hard times they are going through. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. You know that your sperm donor isn't going to leave you or your brother anything when he does. Your grandmother and grandfather loved you and wanted to help you guys. And I'm glad that your mom had their support. They sound like wonderful people. Another comment said, not the a-hole. It's not your father's money to distribute. It's your grandfather's. He clearly knew what he wanted to do with his property. Your dad is the a-hole here for thinking he's entitled to something that's clearly not his. I'm so glad you had such loving grandparents who saw how great your mom was and how awful your father was. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Your grandparents made extremely deliberate choices since they gave their son $500 and your half-siblings $10,000. To do anything other than his wishes would be to disrespect him, because a last will and testament speaks for the dead. If for some reason you want to be generous, fund a charity that you or your grandparents supported, instead of relatives who they didn't want to bequeath anything to. I've never realized there were so many absolutely shameless people in the world who attempt to guilt people into giving them money when they don't deserve it. And of course, the corollary is that I'm a bit surprised that people like OP question. They're not handing over money to greedy people and feel guilty about it. While the money isn't enough to retire on, it certainly is potentially life-changing in the sense that it would either fund tuition for your children or, if invested in something safe like a low-fee index fund, should yield about $750,000. And that is certainly life-changing for you when you retire. The difference for most people between a comfortable retirement with no money worries or reduced to potentially a very meager life. The next story is titled, Am I the A-hole for not kissing the girl I have been dating on the mouth because I saw her kiss her dog on the mouth? So I'm pretty sure I'm not the a-hole, but she reacted so fiercely, I started doubting whether I overreacted. So I've been going out with this girl for a week or 3, grabbing coffee, hooking up, watching a movie. Nothing serious or exclusive, since we both had long-lasting relationships before, and well, we were just scooping each other out, more or less. Not sure whether to commit to anything, but kissing and touching, etc. Normal at this point. So I take her back to her place this morning. We enter, and her dog jumps up at her. She pets him, and so forth. Then she allows her dog to lick her face and mouth. And let me be clear, she was speaking while she did this, so no doubt her tongue even got in her mouth. Well, I'm just grossed out at this point. So I wait a moment, given I want to say goodbye before driving back home, and she pretty much walks at me, thanks me for a nice evening, and goes in for the kiss. Well, I obviously push her away, not hard or anything, just to keep our distance, and say, yeah, it was lovely. Well, she starts raising her voice about me not allowing her to kiss me, and asks me why. So I tell her, the dog just licked her mouth, so that's gross. She starts calling me names, saying that I'm being a douchebag and a pussy, and every other name in the book, to the points where tears well in her eyes. And all her neighbors are probably awake. So I just walk out and go home, pretty stunned about the whole situation. Yeah, I'm just confused. I don't think it was being a douche, and I've never seen her act like this before. Maybe I was a douche somehow. Comment said, not the a-hole. She most likely lashed out because she was embarrassed. Still makes her the a-hole, though. You're not an a-hole for being grossed out, and now she knows that you don't like kissing her after that. I would just forget about it. Another comment said, not the a-hole. I get that people love their dogs and find it perfectly acceptable to have it lick their mouths. However, I find it gross and would act in the exact same way. She was TA for getting so irate at you. She isn't girlfriend material, dude. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my neighbor park in my driveway and possibly calling a tow truck? Now hear me out. I'm a 22-year-old female. My boyfriend is 25-year-old male. Just recently moved out of a 1-bedroom apartment to a beautiful 3-bedroom house. My aunt's friend, Jay, is loaded with houses. She had about 5 houses. We offered to fill space and rent out one of her local houses that she never uses. She loved the idea, and we made all the plans and went to check it out about a week later. While we were at the place taking our first look, we saw 2 cars in the driveway. Jay explained to us that the neighbors to the right have 5 cars and needed an extra driveway. Since she's never there, she agreed to let them use it until when we move in on the 1st, and that they would need to talk to us about possibly letting them keep 1 car there. Well, we moved in on the 1st, and we came by with our moving truck. Driveway was empty. We unloaded everything, and when I left to drop off the truck, day rental, and my boyfriend followed behind in his car, while we were gone, my mom called me saying the neighbors parked their car in the driveway as soon as we pulled out. She went out and mentioned once again to them to talk to us when we get back, but for now, please move it, since I need a place for my car. Well, that was yesterday. I went to work last night. When I got home around 4 a.m. this morning, I have to squeeze into my driveway because once again, their car is parked next to mine. I felt so disrespected and ignored that I'm not sure what to do. They wait until I leave, so I can't do anything. Now my sister says that I'm an a-hole due to having only one car, and my driveway can squeeze in 2 cars. However, I have a lot of worries. Even though I do only have one car, I do have a lot of family that visits. I also worry about damages to mine or his car. Not to mention his car is constantly breaking down from what I've heard. Comment said, not the a-hole. When you pay to rent a house, you're also paying for the yard, the driveway, and other outdoor spaces. If they're being sneaky when they park there, leave a note on their windshield, letting them know they can't park there anymore. Another comment said, not the a-hole. It's your driveway that you are paying for. If he wants space that badly, charge him rent to use it. Otherwise, he needs to keep his property on his property. You should not have to worry about having access to your own home just because they have too many vehicles. It sounds like they have been told multiple times that they need to speak with you to get permission, and since they are not doing that, go ahead and call the non-emergency line for your local law enforcement and inform them of the trespassing. They can come out and explain things, and that way there'll be a legal record to cover you if you have to have it towed away. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving dinner early and causing a scene in front of my wife's family? Let me preface this by saying that I love my wife. I just think she can be a little inconsiderate at times. My son has what my wife calls a deadpan voice. While I admit he doesn't show much enthusiasm when speaking, I think he has a right to express himself in his own way. My wife, however, insists that he needs to be more enthusiastic and vocal. She often tells him to speak up or say it with feeling, and I can tell that it gets to him. My wife recently started taking a different approach, which I can tell really bothers him. When addressing him, she talks in the most enthusiastic voice she can muster. She'll even go so far as to clap her hands and make facial expressions as she talks to him. How was school today? Tell me about it. Speak loudly and with enthusiasm. Think kindergarten teacher talking to her students. My son just looks at her like she's crazy, and I can tell he's embarrassed. I have tried to privately talk to my wife about this, but she doesn't seem to get it. She insists her way is the right way, and that our son needs to learn how to be more outgoing. So fast forward to yesterday. We were celebrating Christmas at my sister-in-law's house, and my son asked me to pass the gravy. My wife, in her usual enthusiastic voice, started saying, "Say it with feeling, honey." "Can you ask for the gravy with enthusiasm?" I snapped. "It's one thing to do this when it's just the two of us, but doing this in front of our family was too much." I got up, took my son, took him to the movies, leaving my wife and the other family members. After we got back, my wife pulled me aside and absolutely ripped into me for causing a scene. She said I was embarrassing her and that I was out of line. I told her that I was tired of her trying to fix our son's personality and that I felt that it was a good opportunity to make a point. My wife's family hasn't said anything to me, but I've been getting a lot of judgmental looks from them. I just wanted to stick up for my son. But did I go too far? Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. You actively brought this up multiple times in private with your wife. She has lost all claim to ask for this matter to remain in private because she refuses to act appropriately after being addressed. You are looking out for the mental health of your son and didn't force him to sit there and be exposed to harassment from your wife. Another comment said, not the a-hole. She's unintentionally telling your son that he isn't normal or good enough as he is, which is damaging to his self-esteem. I understand that she thinks she's doing the right thing, but she isn't. 15 is a crappy age to have a parent constantly enforcing that you're not normal. You did the right thing and let your son know he has a safe place with you.
The next one is an entitled People Story.
My crappy neighbor stole my Halloween decorations, and so I'm going to systematically torture him using his animals. In passing, my neighbor mentioned to me that he has problems with the neighbor next to him and the man's chickens. He was trying to convince me that that neighbor has some grandkids that probably stole my decorations. I wasn't buying it. And disclosed he's had problems with them for years because they have chickens. It's allowed here if you only have a few and no males past the age of maturity. His dog goes insane when he sees them because their yards touch and they have metal fencing, not privacy fencing. Guess who's getting some chickens? Our yards don't exactly touch, but he walks that dog past my house every single day, and I have a large fenced-in front yard and a small backyard, so they're going in the front right by where he walks past us every morning and every night. On top of this pretty average plot, I now have a tombstone in my yard that reads, "Here lies the thief that stole my skull." It was a skull decoration that I made just for them. My husband took all the other decorations down because he didn't want them stolen too, and says we can put them up Halloween night since we will be home. Newborn and trick-or-treating isn't a great plan. So the tombstone is the only decoration, and it's pointed directly at their yard. I also intend to have a revolving door of male chickens just the right side of maturity in my yard at all times to sing him and his dog the songs of his people. Once it's too old to keep, I'll either sell it or eat it. We wanted backyard poultry for a while now anyways, and didn't do it because we were renting. But our landlord allows it, and I'm gifting them some fresh eggs for helping me get what I want on the two fronts. The chickens I wanted, and the petty revenge for stealing my Halloween cheer. I feel kind of bad for the dog, but it won't hurt him to give something else to bark at. And while my neighbor is a douche, I don't think he will harm the dog for barking too much. The next story is titled, "Want to Talk Right Now?" Nope. Okay, so this is a last few days thing. My car insurance expires in a few days, end of October. Naturally, my insurance company tries calling me every day at about 11 a.m. This time is a university classes time for me, so I've been ignoring the calls for some time, knowing I'll renew my insurance on the app. One day I was free for 3 minutes, exactly when they called me. The call went like this. "Hi, is this OP? "Sure, it's me." "Well, we've been trying to reach you for quite some time. Let's renew your car insurance." "Sorry, this is a school day, so I don't have the time right now." "I'll renew it through the app. This is a 1-minute phone call to renew it. Let's do it now." "I'm sorry, I don't have time right now. Also, I want to change my payment method, so I'll do it on the app myself. I've already seen the price there, and I just need to change the payment. I'll do it before it expires." "This is not possible because of a technical issue with our app. Let's do it now. It's just a minute." "Oh, so your app isn't working properly?" "As already said, I don't have the time right now." "Sir, I'll need you to renew your car insurance now. You won't reject any more phone calls from us." "Okay, I see. Your app isn't working and you're yelling. I'll contact you when I feel like it. Goodbye." Cue petty revenge. I decided to do my market research properly. Found a cheaper insurance company, much cheaper, $500 a year, where I'll get more benefits and everything can be done online. This new insurance will also disconnect my previous insurance. The insurance agent's manager called me a day after I paid for my new car insurance. "Hi, OP, I see you stopped your car insurance with us. May I ask why?" I tells him the whole story, suggests him to listen to the phone call as their calls are recorded. Thanks for the info. Today, I got an email from this manager. That agent had a lot of prior complaints, and he wanted to make sure I knew she was put on a non-paid leave indefinitely. Also apologized multiple times and gave me his personal number in case I'll need anything from this company. Revenge is best served quietly, especially when it's petty. The next story is titled, "Happy Outcome with a Side of Pettiness." I was treated badly at my local primary school as a kid. The only year I wasn't ostracized and bullied by students and teachers was when a manipulative brat befriended me and held it over my head. The librarian was the only adult who was consistently kind to me and was even understanding when I lost my crap in class after months of being laughed at, teased, and set up to be humiliated with no help from the teachers, even though I desperately tried to be a good kid worthy of it. That teacher shat down my throat when I finally got upset. Books were the only true friend I had. I eventually got an award for my endeavors. When I was working full-time in a great office 7 years ago, I thought about paying it forward. Fortunately, when I looked up my school, the same librarian was still working there and was the one who updated their website, so I was able to email her and thank her. I also asked for a way to donate if there was any books she wanted. She was truly pleased. I bought $100 worth of books on her list and had them sent to the school directly, simply because I thought a financial donation would be redirected. No money for the classrooms with teachers who were complicit in the bullying and allowed me to be sexually harassed. For the sports teachers who gleefully allowed me to be picked last. a undiagnosed disabled girl who needed OT, hit puberty early, and had no means to get better physical skills. Nor for the music teachers who wouldn't let me touch an instrument other than a recorder. That earned me screams from my parents, because I wasn't a rich kid already getting music lessons with their own instrument from elsewhere. The last story is titled, Narcissist Parents Wanted Me to Trade Houses with Them Because I Got a Slightly Better One, and then literally stole my air conditioners when I refused to give them money. I'm going to start off this by saying that if you have a house and don't have cameras, get cameras. I have some now, but I should have gotten them sooner. I live in a typical manufactured home in Arizona. My parents also live in one just a few streets over. Despite how close we are, I'm VLC because they are just bad people. They treated me okay as a kid. But things changed as soon as I was in my late teens. I was expected to do more and pay my way as soon as I finished high school. That was fair. I was an adult by then after all. But my parents wanted a lot more in rent than what I'd have to pay to get my own apartment. I'd have had next to nothing left of my monthly paycheck if I'd given them what they wanted. So I refused to give them more than their fair amount, plus a share in utilities. And I started buying my own food as well. My father openly said this was not good enough, and my parents filed official paperwork to evict me when I refused to cater to their demands. I left home and got an apartment with my best friend. 5 years later, and I bought my own house in a neighborhood not far from my parents'. It's just a manufactured home on a small property, but it was so damn cheap that I couldn't turn it down. And my monthly mortgage isn't bad either. I even moved my best friend in to help me cover the bills. We were already used to living in the same space, and the house gave us much more room. I may even let another friend move in to get more rent money for the mortgage because I've got one room that's left unused right now since the house is a 3-bedroom. My parents, though, somehow didn't like my independence from them. Did they want me to fail or something? I don't know. But the incident that caused the VLC was when they demanded I trade houses with them. Yes, you heard that correctly. They wanted to trade. Their manufactured home is smaller and older than mine and has one less bedroom. And their yard is smaller too. Not that either of us have any grass. It is Arizona after all. When they first saw my place, they looked pissed. After a couple more visits, my father said it wasn't fair that I was doing better than them, and I was rubbing my nicer house in their faces. It's just an old manufactured home in one of the hottest states in the U.S. Seriously. What's to brag about? But I guess having something even slightly better than what my parents had irked them. And as I have already said, they demanded we trade houses because of it. My friend who lives with me literally fell onto the couch laughing when they said that. And I couldn't help but join in. My father said it was not funny. And to give him what he wants. When I recovered my composure, I said he and my mother were not entitled to my house, or anything I own for that matter. And then told them to get the duck out. After that, we barely spoke. And then the pandemic hit. Didn't really change my life much. I like the peace and quiet, and my friend knows to leave me alone most of the time. My father, however, got laid off. And he struggled to find another job. He ended up working in the local Mardo walls for half the year before getting a better paying job. I did get a kick out of seeing him there when I was shopping for groceries. But as much as I hate him, I'm not going to call him a bad employee. He did fine, but during that time, he and my mother kept calling me and asking for money. And I know what y'all are thinking. Don't lend them anything. They don't want loans, they wanted handouts. Why? Because they raised me and I owed them. I said if they didn't want the cost of raising a kid, they shouldn't have had one. A few weeks ago, though, my mother called me begging for money because their dinosaur of a window AC unit finally crapped out. I told them I was not giving them anything, and they were too cheap to replace that old AC unit for a long time, so I wasn't going to buy them a new one. My mother then complained about how I have two in my house, and the least I could do was give them one. I then said that maybe if she and my father weren't always pissing away their money on beer and MJ all the time, they'd have the money to buy another AC. Then I said I wasn't giving them one of mine or any money. End of story. Only it wasn't the end of the story. A few days later, I came home from work to find my house had been broken into. My front door locks were drilled out and both of my window AC units were gone. Nothing else was stolen, but they went out of their way to make a huge mess for some stupid reason. Probably to make it look like a typical robbery or something. I knew it had to have been my parents and called the police. I told the police that I heavily suspected my parents of the theft because they acted entitled to my stuff, even though I'm a grown man that doesn't live with them. I went with the police to my parents' house, and sure enough, they had both my AC units going in their windows. When I confronted my parents, they obviously denied the theft, then claimed they already owned the AC units. But statements from their neighbors said otherwise. But my parents still denied the theft. I bought both AC units used online years ago, which means I had no receipt for them. So I figured my only option was to look for witnesses in my own neighborhood. And as luck would have it, a neighbor across the street had security cameras, and the edge of one of them caught just enough to see my parents showing up in my father's truck. My father could be seen walking with a cordless power drill in hand, and a few minutes later they came back to the truck with my AC units. Then went back in to ransack the place, I'm guessing. With this evidence in hand, police had cause to arrest my parents. At first, both acted like they had done nothing wrong, but I convinced the police to let me do the talking. I said they could either return the AC units to my home and clean up the mess they made, or I'd let the police arrest them both right there. They'd already stolen from me, lied to police, trespassed, vandalized my house, broke my front door locks, and there was video evidence of what they had done. If I pressed charges, they were going to jail for sure. My parents looked deflated, then asked for a moment to talk with each other in their bedroom. I heard a lot of shouting from both, and I could hear my mother yelling that my father was an idiot, and he was trying to blame me in turn. After about 5 minutes, they came back out looking even more deflated, and said that they'll return the AC units and stop bothering me for money if I didn't press charges. I said they were going to clean up the mess in my house and buy new locks for my front door as well. And then I wanted written apologies from both on top of it. They begrudgingly agreed and even got a police escort back to my house. My father was forced to put the AC units back in my windows, and then left my mother to clean up the huge mess they made while he went out and bought replacement locks for my front door. He was gone about an hour and came back with a new stainless steel lock set to replace the knob and deadbolt. Then he had to help my mother finish cleaning. During this time, I let the two cops just sit and watch them while drinking soda. They said it was very entertaining. After everything was cleaned up, I gave my parents each a piece of paper and a pencil. Then I told them to write out apologies to me for what they'd done. My father looked especially pissed and said I was treating him like a child. I said he was acting like one and never stopped treating me as a child either. This was just me holding him accountable, and I could have sent him to jail, but I felt like this was better for teaching him a lesson. Then he kind of snorted and started writing. My mother wrote out a good apology, but my father's was half-assed and passive-aggressive, but I didn't care. It seemed to kill him a little inside to have to do it, and when he was done, he left without speaking to me. My mother said she was sorry and she'd leave me alone, then followed him. The two cops said they thought the whole thing was hilarious, and then thanked me for giving them an excuse to take a break while on the job before leaving. Not long after, I shelled out to get some cameras for the exterior of my house, so if someone tries to break in again, I'll get it on video. I only have 2 cameras, but added a couple more fake ones that look real enough just to scare people off. I haven't heard a peep from my parents. But their next-door neighbor told me they went and bought a new AC unit. Guess they had the money for one after all. Makes me wonder how high they were when they thought it was a good idea to steal from me. Maybe having lean pockets for a while will teach them. Then again, they are who they are after all. Thank you for watching, and I'd really appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel.